Guys, it's Lori. Today I wanted to talk to you about angels. I made a video the other day about demons, and I wanted to do the flip side, talk to you about angels. Demons are really negative beings. They're evil. They're pure evil. I know some people like to think evil doesn't exist, but it absolutely exists. We have so much stuff going on in this world where there's no way that people can truly believe that evil doesn't exist. I mean, I'm all for positive thinking and I'm all for prayer and I believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, but evil exists. And even Jesus talks about it in the Bible. But so do angels. Now, as we talked about in the video about demons, an angel is a messenger of God. A lot of people have it backwards. They worship angels or they pray to angels directly. And that's not right. We're not supposed to do that. But that doesn't mean they don't exist. They do exist. They exist to, they're messengers and they do God's will. Now, whether that be to help us or to do whatever else God has them do, but that's what they're there for. They're there, they work for God. Okay. And do they work for us through God? Absolutely. You know, when you're God's child, He absolutely does send protection. Sometimes He sends messages through angels. They're all around. They're very close. The angelic realm, the other side where angels and demons and other creatures are, is very, very close to us. We have other entities all around us. And as I talked about in the demon video, demons are there sometimes to make us believe stuff that isn't necessarily true about ourselves. Angels are there to uplift us. They're there to give us messages from God. They're there to send, maybe God sends them to answer a prayer, to set something up for us that will lead us exactly where we need to be. To keep us protected, our guardian angels. There are several reasons why they come around. In the Bible, we see angels coming to talk to Mary. We see angels coming to Daniel. And there's other accounts of angels as well. I know one time I was in a eight car pileup. I was in a head-on collision. A drunk driver hit us head-on. I was in the back seat, and I am very blessed I didn't die. And my oldest son was born early by the grace of God, because the doctors told me that had he been in my belly, which technically he should have been, he wouldn't have been here today. And I split my head open and I broke bones in my face. So I'm laying in the back seat with my head out of the car, and it was pouring down rain. And there was an officer that laid with me, that held my hand while I laid there, and he talked to me. And I was very, very frightened, and I couldn't move. They didn't want me to move because they were afraid that other bones were broken, and I had a head injury. And he held my hand and he comforted me, and he said all kinds of comforting words, and he just sat there. I thought, I thanked him and I said, don't you have to be, with others? And he said, no, I'm going to stay right here with you. And I looked at his badge and I got his name. And honestly, that was almost 30 years ago. And I don't remember what his name was now. But I did call later, after, a couple weeks later. I called because I wanted to talk to that officer. I wanted to send him maybe a card or a little present or something because he was so good to me. And I was told that there was no officer by that name. And I said, well, maybe I have the name wrong. And they looked back and they said, ma'am, no, there was no officer at the scene at that time. And I have no choice but to believe that that was an angel. I've also heard angelic stories from some of the people that I work with and some friends of mine. A girlfriend of mine was stuck in a snowstorm, and an angel came and helped her. She got stuck on the median, and this man in a truck came by and got her off, and she told him she wanted to send him a check, and he said, no, I don't want any payment. And she asked him at least what his name was, and it was Gabe's trucking or something like that, and he just smiled. And she looked it up later and there wasn't one, it didn't exist. So we were thinking it was Gabriel. You know, God wants us to know that He loves us. He wants us to know that He answers prayer. He wants us to know that we're protected. And angels do all of those things. It says in the Bible that, there are more angels than we can count. But there could be a myriad of angels around us. There's a story, it actually came out in the paper, I think back in the 20s or 30s, of an older woman that was walking home with her groceries, and some gang members came to give her some problems. And she said a prayer to surround her with angels. And all of a sudden, the gang members ran. And this is documented. And when later the police caught up with them and asked, "Why did you run?" And they said there were all these very large creatures around her. Same thing in the war in Israel, where the soldiers from the other side said they saw like a band of soldiers, big angels. From what we see of a description in the Bible, I mean, all the pictures we have of angels, and they're all wrong. They're supposedly creatures that are very frightening, actually, frightening looking, some of them anyway, and some of them are very large. So, probably if we saw an angel in its natural form, we'd probably be frightened. But they do come to us in forms that will not frighten us. They're beings of light. They're there to help us. They don't want to frighten us. And I do believe, just like a couple stories that I just told you, I believe that they come in human form and help us. There are people that really listen to the will of God and help other people. Those are people. They're not angels. But we call them earth angels because they seem to come right at the right time. And we can all be earth angels if we listen to the Lord and we don't let fear rule us, and we give according to what God tells us to do, and we're going to be somebody's angel. You could be an answer to somebody's prayer and not even know it. But another thing I hear is when people lose a loved one, they say, "Well, God gained another angel." It's a nice expression. It's not true. People stay people in spirit even after death. They don't become angels. They don't become fairies. They don't become any other creature. And angels remain angels. They don't become people. They can appear as a person, but they don't become a person. Some people see angels as like little glitters of light. Others, I have a friend who says she sees them, they're like light in the sky. um I heard a story of a couple where the woman she was terminal, and she was not far from death. She was a couple months from death, and they both were awakened in the night at the same time. They both got up quietly, looked in their living room, and they both claimed that they saw an angel sitting on their couch. Now, was that angel supposed to be seen? I don't know. But both of them were basically paralyzed just looking at this angel, and they both went back to bed without saying a word. So obviously there's some kind of, maybe the angel wasn't supposed to be seen. I doubt it. I think if they saw him, they were meant to see him. Angels usually come in the form of a male. If you see them as a spiritual being, they look more male to us. If you see them as if they take human form to do something for us, I would imagine they can be male or female. I've only saw male, but that doesn't mean that they can't come in the form of a female. So how do you know when an angel's around? Numbers. A lot of times we see numbers. The number 1111 or 111 is always a good number. It always means the angel, God has heard your prayer, and the angels are coming to answer you. The angels don't answer your prayer. God answers your prayer, but He can use angels to do so. The number's 333. That's the number of Jesus. So a lot of repetitive numbers are angels giving you signs. Sometimes you'll even see them on license plates, or maybe on a radio station, or the clock. The clock is a big one. Or you could see them in all different ways. So pay attention. Another thing is smells. Just like the demonic energy, a lot is the flip side, because you know what? The devil uses everything that God puts out there and twist it. So smells, a very sweet, loving, not a hideous sweet, not a sicky sweet, but like a sweet, loving smell out of nowhere where there's no reason for it, could be an angel. um Sometimes you'll see like light, like flashes of light. That could be an angel. um Numbers, I talked about. Dreams, they come in dreams sometimes. um they will sometimes give us just messages. Have you ever had just how we talked about with demons, how you can have a feeling somebody's watching you? Well, with angels, it's that same feeling, like somebody's watching you. But you can but it's not just someone's watching you, it's like a piece, like instead of someone's watching you, it feels like you're not alone. You know that you've got this. Even if you're scared to death, you know you're not alone. You know, Jesus Christ is our Savior, and He comes. Sometimes He comes Himself, but many times He sends His angels. Don't pray directly to angels, because even if you were sitting there talking directly to an angel, the angel would say, "Please don't pray to me. I'm only here because God told me to be here. I'm a being of light. I wish for you to pray to the Lord." That's what a true angel would say. I know we have some of these new age entities. I'm not going to name any names, but some that, they come through and they claim to be a high master or something, but they won't admit the truth. They won't admit that God is God and that Jesus is Lord and that Jesus Christ died for our sins. They won't admit that. And if they won't admit that, it is not a being of light. Okay? We're supposed to discern the spirits. And the way that we discern the spirits is to know if they know the truth. They could seem to be the lightest, the brightest, make good things happen. And if they can't admit that, they're not a being of light. Another thing angels might do is leave money. Have you ever found coins? Like we call them pennies from heaven. My angels like to leave me quarters. And usually it's after I've prayed to God, like, please help me get through this financially or whatever. I'll go outside and I see two quarters, or even sometimes it's pennies, and I know right there it's the angels leaving me a message. Um, they will sometimes bring a song to your heart or to your mind. They're the ones that are there when you're feeling down, that are letting you know that you are worthy, that you are somebody special. That's an angel whispering in your ear. And believe it or not, there is a whole battle going on around us. We fight not against flesh and blood, we fight against powers and principalities. So we need to know that even if people seem to be hurting us, there's a power behind that. But you know what? There's also a power behind us, and that's the power of Jesus, and He uses His angels. And there are hundreds, millions of thousands, whatever, of angels. There's so many of them we couldn't count. So He can send us a myriad of angels, 10,000 angels. He can send us 10,000 angels. I ask that often. I'll say, Lord, could you send me 10,000 angels to get me through this if it's something hard? I remember when my son was on life support, and I was like, Lord, can you please surround him with 10,000 angels? When I feel like somebody is losing faith for whatever reason, if they've lost somebody through tragedy, or even, if somebody was sick and they crossed over, or if they're going through a divorce, I ask, Lord, will you please send them a myriad of angels if somebody's sick? But if you get that sense, that well-being, that somebody's there, but you know that they're good, you know that you've got peace because they're there. Or have you ever, a friend was just telling me the other day that she comes out of the store and there's a few, like, quote unquote thug-like guys out there, and she was scared. She got a little nervous. They looked like they might want to rob her, and they started following her. And she saw, like, not in a dark way, but like a shat, like another being, and she felt at peace. Next thing you know, they're gone. I bet if we could interview them, which we probably never would, but I bet they either sensed that they shouldn't mess with her, or they saw something that she wasn't aware was there. Just like there was another girl one time walking through in the parks in New York. in Central Park. If you've ever gone through, they have like these like tunnels that you walk through. And she was walking through one, and there was a man in there that looked very suspicious. He gave her the creeps, you know, he looked like he was going to jump her, and it was nighttime. So she walked very quickly, and found out later that because the police interviewed her because they knew that she was there at the time, because a woman directly after her was raped. And she said, why on earth, you know, wouldn't they touch me? I was alone. And the police asked the man, and the man said, no, that woman was with a man. She wasn't with a man, but he saw that because she was with her guardian angel. It's just she didn't know it. I'm not saying the other woman deserved anything. That's not what I'm saying. But for whatever reason, this woman, maybe the other woman didn't pray. I'm not sure what the situation is. I do not want to speak for God, and I don't want to speak for angels. But they do protect us. They keep us at peace even through a bad situation. They're not going to act without permission. So they come and they answer our prayers. They set things up. But you know what? If we refuse to let them help us, they have no choice. Their hands are tied. So if you get that feeling like someone's around you and you're at peace, know that it's God sending his angels. If you get a nice smell out of nowhere and you're like, wow, what was that? And it's beautiful. It's just a beautiful scent. That's the angels. If they're leaving you coins, or you keep hearing the same song, or just, you know, all these good little signs, the numbers are big. Angels are big on numbers. 1111, 111, 333, even 222. I know sometimes if you see 911, I personally, when I see 911, if I see it like 3 times in a row, I know the angels are trying to warn me about something. 411, they're trying to give you information. They have a sense of humor. So before 411 meant anything, I'm sure they didn't use that one, you know, but they know that to us, 411 means information. They know that to us, 911 means emergency, you know, so I always take that as a warning. I take 411 as to be special, pay special attention. 1111, I always take as God has heard your prayer and he's going to answer you. 333, I always take put Jesus first. Jesus is here. Maybe a reminder to put God first. 222 usually means to me that something on the earthly level is about to happen. So just kind of pay attention, heads up. They are there for us, though. They're definitely there for us. I know I've gotten awakened by a male voice in my ear a couple different times, and one time it was an emergency. And what happened is I had fallen asleep on the couch because one of my sons was out. And if you're a mom or a dad, you know if your kids are not home, you can't really sleep. And I heard a male voice whisper in my ear, Lori, wake up. Lori, wake up. And I kind of tossed and turned like, I don't want to wake up. A few minutes later, Lori, wake up. Come on, the phone's going to ring. So I sat up and I kind of, just kind of sat up to wake up, and the phone rang. And I kind of chuckled and went, oh, who knew, right? Until I looked and saw who it was. It was the Manchester police, and they were alerting me to a problem with my son. And I think what it was is God wanted me to be awake before I got that phone call. He didn't want that phone call to wake me. Turns out my son ended up to be okay, but it was an emergency situation. So I think what he was saying is, I don't want her to wake up to that. I want her to be awake and ready. And it was a tangible voice. It wasn't in my head. It was as if somebody came and whispered in my ear. That's happened to me 3 times like that. And I really love that because I know in my heart that that was my angel. I wish I knew my angel's name, but I don't need to know. It's always the same voice. I think that's my guardian angel. But there's also other angels that have other jobs. So don't pray directly to angels. I know that there's a whole movement that does that, and that's not right. Don't take anything higher than God. God sends the angels, they're his messengers to do his bidding. So they either bring us the message of answered prayer, they bring us the message of protection, they bring us the message of love and peace, and don't forget about God, and that we're good enough and that we can survive whatever is thrown at us as long as we have faith. Anyway, I just wanted to kind of give you a few tips on if the angels are around. You know they're around you. Welcome their presence. Be open. Pay attention. Pay attention and thank them when you get that coin on the ground. Pick it up. Don't worry about who's watching. Say thank you. When you see the numbers, thanks for the message. When you hear the song, thank you. You know, when you smell that smell and when you feel that peace, when everybody else is like, why aren't you freaking out? And it's because you know that you're not alone. I got to tell you another one, and then I'll end this. Just one more. So I was driving home from a friend's house, and um, I stopped at a store for something. I don't know what. But a guy comes up to me, and I had a purple car at the time. And this guy comes up to me and he says, your mom wants you to get oil for the car. Now, I was driving alone, and I didn't want him to think I was crazy. So I was like, excuse me, you sure it's my car? He's like, yeah, that little purple Hyundai. How many people have a purple Hyundai, right? I said, yeah, that's me. He said, yeah, your mom said not to forget oil. So I said, okay, thank you. Went and bought the oil. Didn't say anything to him. Went out to the car, looked, there's nobody in my car. I wasn't blessed enough to see with physical eyes, but she said, she came in female form, said that to him, and that spirit was my angel that day. That was awesome. So I went to put oil in the car. I was bone dry. I probably would have blown my motor. So they're around, they're everywhere. So be grateful. It can really be uplifting to know that in this world where all this crazy stuff happens, and sometimes you can be having the worst day, but to know that God cares enough about you to send 10,000 angels around you, to have your own personal angels to kind of warn you about stuff that you might think God doesn't care about. Remember, God cares about every hair on your head. He knows. And when you have a bad day, He knows you're having a bad day and He cares about that. God has to take care of all that's going on in the world, but He cares. He cares if you feel like you just don't look good today. He cares if you're worried about something. He cares if you're upset. And He cares enough to send some of His angels. We ought to be grateful about that, huh? All right. God bless you guys. I'll talk to you soon.